So just by way of introduction, my name's Brad Miller. Yes, I have a PhD. No, I do not believe that makes me better than anybody else. So I tell my students just as much as I tell everyone else, please call me Brad. I think that having a PhD just means I was bullheaded enough to stick in school for a really long time, but nothing else. That doesn't make me smarter. So I've been living here in Champaign County for the past 11 years. I came here originally for graduate school back in 2013 and did my PhD and an MBA both here at the University of Illinois. Interestingly enough, it was before the College of Business was called the Gies College of Business, and it was before the MBA program went online, so it was all in person. It was kind of, I like to call it the real MBA, but that's just, I don't want to say that to all the people doing an online MBA because it's still a real MBA. I teach in the School of Information Science here on campus. I teach a class called Introduction to Data Storytelling. And that class is primarily how you can take information and turn it into compelling stories that lead people to want to do what you're hoping they will do from your story. So that might be buying a product, or understanding your point of view, or following you, or agreeing with you, whatever that might be. I teach my students how to use stories in a compelling and interesting way that helps their point get across in an important way. I've also built 2 artificial intelligence companies over the past 3 years, and currently I am very overwhelmed with the amount of work that I am focusing on. Right now I'm building a couple of different specialized AI tools, one for musicians who want to run their own business. I'm also building one that helps people get answers to their religious-based questions for a church. They just have a lot of people coming to them on a regular basis asking questions about things like scripture and like what does it actually say and what does it actually mean. And so I'm building an AI tool to support that. And I'm also building an AI tool at the moment to help first responders deal with hazardous material incidents. So anytime there's a spill where you might have hazardous materials involved, we want to make sure that anybody from the person who is reporting the incident, be that a farmer who saw a tractor, their tractor, had a little bit of an accident and they're suddenly spilling something like anhydrous ammonia. What do I do? Where do I go? How do I report this? Who do I report it to? My tool will be helpful in those types of situations. So that's what I'm doing currently. And actually, you all should consider yourselves lucky because I technically teach right now.
Wow.
But I asked my TA to teach for me. So she's teaching the class right now. But another AI tool that I'm building is a virtual TA, so virtual teaching assistant, because I want to make sure that my students get answers to the questions that they have in the moments that they have them. And more often than not, that's in the middle of the night with these 18, 19, 20-year-old students. And so I don't want to have to answer a question in the middle of the night, nor do I want to be responsible for having to answer that as soon as I wake up. So I'm building a tool that helps my students get the answers to the questions that they need.
So does that mean that you're anticipating what they're going to ask you about?
I actually don't anticipate what they're going to ask me about. I only put in the information from my classes.
Okay.
So everything that we have talked about up until now gets uploaded into a database, and then the large language model, or the AI, can search through all of that to find the answer to their very specific questions. And if it doesn't have information regarding those answers, it'll just say, wait until next week when Brad's going to talk about it in class. Yeah.
Just a real basic question then. So how does the tool that you're saying differ from an app? Or is it that tool an app?
It is technically an application. So the question was, how is that tool different from an app? And technically it is an application. It's an app that is all web-based. So they have to go to a specific website to access it.
Okay.
And I can show you an example of, not my virtual TA, well, I could show you my virtual TA as well. Or I can show you a friend of mine. He's a professor at Manhattan University, and he's also using it just testing it out for me and seeing if it's helpful. He teaches 2 classes there. Good question, though. Any other questions? All right, so let's go into some definitions. I'm a linguist, so I like to define things. All right, first of all, AI. What is AI? Really, all AI is, it is a technology that makes it easier for computers to be able to do things that humans used to consider impossible for a computer to be able to do. So things like recognizing patterns, making decisions even. Answering questions is a very common end result of an AI system. And so what you do with AI, in order to build that, you actually have to do, it's a lot of statistics. And the statistics come in and it builds a little model, and that statistical model, you can give it an input, say do this thing, and the statistical model will give you an output that is pretty human-like. It's really scary sometimes. And how does it learn? How does it actually build that model? Well, it's through a process called machine learning. And who here has ever heard that term machine learning before? We've got a couple people, okay. So machine learning is how we teach a system to learn in a way that it can actually perform a function a lot faster in the future. And if it knows how to do things, or it knows what to do in certain situations, then it's able to perform that task at a very robust and high performance level. And when I say high performance, what I mean is that if I were to ask, let's say, you're a novelist, right? You write books. If I were to ask you, what is the 15,000th word in your second novel? That's a great answer. It's most likely correct. But using a system that has been trained, meaning this machine learning system, we can immediately get the answer because we don't have to rely on our memories of, oh, well, perhaps I do have the whole entire novel memorized, but more often than not, my memory fails me. I like to say that my brain is a computing device, not a storage device, meaning I don't remember things very well, but I can compute, process things decently well. But I can't outperform a computer. I can't perform calculations. I'm horrible at math. But computers are much better than me at math. And that's where machine learning comes in. It trains the system to be able to perform in a certain way. At the same time, we have this thing called natural language processing. Like I said, I'm a linguist. I like to talk about natural language. We communicate using natural language. I am speaking to you in English. You are comprehending. That's the way in which we interact with the world. But computers don't speak English. Well, they didn't until we had natural language processing. A computer is able to process natural human language and understand that when I say the sentence, the quick brown fox jumped over, it understands that the most likely next word is going to be the next most likely word is going to be a, and then the next most likely word is an, right? Just statistically speaking, the quick brown fox jumped over, you all can finish that.
Yeah.
It just happens naturally. But a computer needs to be taught how to understand language, and that's where natural language processing comes in. So it allows the computer to understand human language. And here's the other important thing. I'm speaking to you, and that's creating vibrations in the air that are then causing vibrations in your ears, that are then causing neural pathways to activate so that you understand the words that I'm actually saying. A computer doesn't have an ear. It's got a microphone, but it needs to be able to interpret sound waves and understand that's natural spoken language. And so it's a very interesting thing to be able to handle all of that. Next, we've got algorithms. So algorithms are just fancy math. And anyone here a mathematician? Okay. Kind of. Thank you for being I appreciate that. I am not a mathematician. I don't even know if this is real or fake. I just found the image online and used it. But computers are really good at computing, right? Back in the 30s and in the 40s and in the 50s, computers were humans because they did computation. And then once machines were able to do those computations faster, suddenly those algorithms that computers literally had to write up on a chalkboard then became algorithms that got put into punch cards, and then after punch cards they got put into code so that computers can actually process, the machine computer can actually process those algorithms. AI processes algorithms that are so complex that most humans don't even understand how they work. And when I say most humans don't understand how they work, I would say there's probably 3,000 people in the world who actually understand how these things work. There's not that many people in the world that know this stuff. The true algorithms underlying artificial intelligence. That can be scary. And so we have to build systems that allow us to understand the inner workings of AI in order to understand it well enough so that we can say we trust it. And the point that I'm trying to make here is that algorithms are fancy, but let's not worry so much about the algorithms. Let's trust that the algorithms are working and look only instead at the output. Like you said when you're writing your novel, I don't want it to write for me. I don't want to trust innately every single output that the computer is telling me. And that's, I hope each of you can take that with you. Don't just trust always that it's going to be accurate, because sometimes it's not. And when it's not, it can be problematic. There was a lawyer a few years ago who decided he was going to write his legal brief using ChatGPT. This was right after ChatGPT came out, and he wrote a legal brief and he presented that to the judge, and the judge looked at it and saw that he was citing certain cases that were not real. And so he asked the lawyer, why did you cite these cases that didn't actually happen? And the lawyer tried to make an argument for why he was citing these cases that weren't actually real, instead of admitting that he had used AI for this. And ultimately this lawyer was disbarred, lost his license to practice law, because he was so confident in the output of AI that he didn't stop to think, perhaps this is wrong. Or perhaps this isn't entirely what I want to be sharing with the judge. All right, and then a chatbot. Has anyone here used ChatGPT or some other chat? We've got one in the back, a couple of others, okay. So a handful of others. A chatbot is essentially like texting. I should pull my phone out because I'm gonna show you some demos from my phone as well. It's like texting, but with a computer. That's it. And the cool thing about chatbots is that they have now progressed to the point where you can speak to it and it will speak back to you. And it will even pause and it'll sound like it's taking a breath. It's all a computer, but it sounds like it's real. Most AI today is chat-based, meaning you type something in or say something, and it will respond, either speaking back to you or say something back to you. Most people engage with AI through a chat interface. The interface is the experience that you have. So that's what we're dealing with mostly today. Now, we will talk a little bit about the future of artificial intelligence. And the future of artificial intelligence is sometimes scary, but also extremely exciting. Right now, most people are familiar with this chat back and forth. I give you input, the computer responds. But in the future, AI systems are getting to the point where they are so advanced that they can predict what you're going to say before you say it.
Scary.
It can be scary. It can be scary. But let me give you an example that's not so scary. So in this tool that I'm building right now for band managers, musicians who want to manage their own band, a band of one, musicians are notoriously not that good at managing a business. And that's okay. That gives them more time to be able to create their music, perform, do the thing that they love. They don't have to have an MBA in order to run their own business anymore, especially not with this tool that I've built for them. This tool will proactively tell them, hey, you're going down to Charleston this weekend. Your number one fan lives in Mattoon, just right across the way. If you wanted to, I can reach out to them and ask if they would be willing to host a house performance. I'll reach out to them, and I approve it first. I'll reach out to them, and then it will reach out to them in a very personalized way, saying, I know you bought this album last week. You were really excited about this vinyl record that we produced last year. Would you be willing to invite 10 of your closest friends to just a personal little performance in your home? If you'd be willing, just let us know. So that's a proactive approach that the AI can take, and now the artist just gets the response back, hey, they're up for it. They want to have the performance in your house, or in their house. They really want you to play this song, this song, this song, this song, and they're going to bring 10 of their closest friends, and it's just an opportunity for you to sell a little bit of more merchandise. And by the way, they're going to pay you, $1,000 to come and perform in their home.
Does the AI clean the house before?
No, it doesn't clean the house. That would be nice. That would be really nice. But there are ways in which you can build in proactivity instead of just this artist hoping and remember, oh wait, where was I thought I knew somebody that lives down in Mattoon. But now we can rely on that system to help us out a little bit more. Yes?
Have you named your system?
Not yet. If you have ideas for a name, I would love that.
Hal.
Hal?
Yeah.
We could do that. It's interesting. Do you know what's in, Hal?
Yeah.
Well, we can go into it later. But there are systems that have been built very similar to Hal, and they're named things very similar to H-A-L.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a long story. It's all business, fun stuff. Other
It's
questions?
probably copyrighted, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely copyrighted. Other questions? Great. So let's talk about some important things to know, all right? First, this is a fancy word. My mathematician might understand what stochastic means here, but AI is just a stochastic parrot, okay? Stochastic meaning it's using the fancy statistics, the mathematical models to come up with the answers. And parrot meaning it just copies whatever you say, right? And I want you to go through a thought experiment with me, okay? So imagine you're on a desert island. You're the only person on this island, and there's a nice little communication pathway that you've got to another desert island. You can see it across the way. And you assume there might be a person over there, and you can communicate with that person over a telephone. It's a hardwired telephone line. And you think that there's someone there, and so you pick up the phone and you call and you say, hello, is anybody there? And you get a response back that says, yes, I'm here. Your first response is going to be, okay, so there's another human over there. Well, unbeknownst to you, it's actually a parrot. It's not a human. And that parrot is the smartest parrot in the world, because that parrot has been trained on everything that has ever been said in the human language, and it knows how to respond in a way that seems like it's a human. And so you call up and you say, today was a really rough day, wasn't it? How about that storm last night? And the parrot responds and says, yeah, we got 3 inches of rain over here. It was a little wild, wasn't it? And you keep thinking that you're dealing with this human, but at the end of the day, it's just a parrot. And so you get into a rowboat and you eventually go across the way, and you're looking around for this human and you realize there's nobody here. That is what AI is. It seems like a human. It sounds like a human. It might apologize to you if it gets something wrong. It might take a deep breath as if it were speaking. It sounds like it's speaking. You might hear those pauses. You might even hear it reassess something and rethink something based on additional information that you provided. But at the end of the day, it's just a machine. So please, please, please keep that in mind, okay? Second, AI does not have feelings or emotions. If you tell it that it did something wrong, it will apologize, but it won't feel bad. It will say, I'm sorry, you are right. I should have done this differently. But it's not going to feel bad. So if you say you are wrong in a very harsh way, it doesn't care. Don't do that with your children and grandchildren. Don't do that with your neighbors, because they do have those feelings, they do have those emotions. But you get to interact with AI in a different way because it doesn't have emotions. Now, there's a positive and a negative to having these a non-emotion being, if you will, right? The negative side of it is that it doesn't understand the potential damage it might cause. It does not reason in such a way that it might feel guilty if it gives you a response that ultimately causes problems. There's no reaction on that side, and that's very negative. That is extremely negative. So we have to treat it in that way, understanding that it's not going to feel guilty if it gives you bad advice. At the same time, because it doesn't have emotion, you can treat it any way you want. And you can let all your anger and everything out on this thing, and it's not going to stop giving you answers. Because it doesn't have emotion, because it doesn't have feeling, it also doesn't get tired. And so if you want to keep working on a problem with this AI tool, it will never stop being as effective. The very first time you engage with it will still be as effective as the 100 millionth time you engage with it. And in fact, it will get better. And that's a really good thing. Yes?
Where is this going? I mean, it's 3 years and it's gone from rudimentary to where it's gotten to, and
You are reading my mind. You are, this is perfect. Where is it going? Well, it's not going to take over the world. And I like to caveat and say, yet. There's this thing called the singularity. Has anyone heard that term before? Singularity? I see some nods, that's great. Singularity is the point at which AI is better than humans at all tasks. And it starts thinking for itself. That's a scary moment. We are still years away from that. And 2 years ago, I was at a conference. It was the first generative AI conference happening in Silicon Valley, down in San Francisco area. And I was attending and listening to people who were really big names. Like these are people who work for Microsoft and Google, people who work for Amazon, and just like the big players in this space. OpenAI is another big one. And they were all talking about how far away the singularity might be. What they said 2 years ago was that it was about 5 years away. 2 years later, they're still saying it's about 5 years away. What we've found is that there are certain limitations to AI that people haven't yet been able to overcome, emotion being one of those things. And there are enough people working hard on the ethics of artificial intelligence that thankfully we're hitting this kind of limit. AI is going to continue advancing. And eventually we are going to get to the point where a system can outperform a human on everything, including physical, manual dexterity, movements in the physical world, that sort of thing. But for the time being, we're still safe. What I would encourage each of you to think about, how can each of you play a part in driving a future of artificial intelligence that is more ethical? A future of artificial intelligence, rather than letting it happen to us, let's take a proactive approach. And let's build tools, or at least request tools, that are very ethically minded, and not deal with tools that do not have those ethics underlying them. There are big systems in play, especially governmental regulation, both here in the United States, in the European Union, across the world. There are lots of regulations happening in the AI space right now. We need those regulations just to make sure that we don't run into a Terminator situation where the AI builds its own robot and that robot is then told exterminate all human beings. That's really what we want to avoid. Any questions about where is this headed? Yes, please.
I'm not so worried about the machines taking over as I'm worried about somebody like Putin taking over and deciding,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get one of those 3,000 people that knows how this system is working and put something in that would be an effective against the whoever the enemy happens to be at that year.
You know, that's a really good question and a good point. So the point that she made was, I'm not so worried about a machine taking over, but rather a bad actor state. Somebody who decides they want to behave in a certain way, and it doesn't have to be Russia, it can be any nation. It can be the United States, it could be, right? We can think of any bad actor nation and ask, what is it that we ultimately want to drive towards? And if we build in, there are safeguards that can be built into the systems, but also there can be defense that can be built into the systems. And so in a bad actor situation, let's call it one of those 3,000 people decides, I'm an independent state, and I want to build an AI bot that takes a whole, thousands of drones and eliminates anybody of a particular race or ethnicity or who lives in a particular space. That is doable today. That could happen today. And so we have to be mindful of both the defensive building of artificial intelligence systems to combat those systems, as well as the safeguards that might be put in place both through regulation and through our own intellect and our capabilities of using the systems themselves. One thing that's a really great example of this type of work is misinformation. Misinformation, and I taught about this last week in my class. Misinformation is all around, and most of that misinformation is AI generated through bad actors. People who want to cause misinformation. More often than not, all they have to do is take a truth, distort it slightly, and portray it out of context in such a way that anybody who sees it will suddenly start believing it. And it's very easy to advertise on Facebook. It's very easy to advertise on Instagram. It's very easy to put these things out there. I could generate 1,000 fake accounts on Facebook, and they could all like my post. And suddenly I'm seeing 1,000 people liking this post, and it dupes the algorithms inside of Facebook so that Facebook will start serving that to everybody who's a real person. And they see over 1,000 people have already liked this. They've shared this all over the place. And now that's how misinformation gets spread. And that's happening today. So what we can do to combat that is look at things and ask, what is the truth with the context that's relevant here? Not be so quick to respond, but rather think for ourselves and be willing to disagree with something that a supposed friend posted online, because maybe they didn't realize what they were reposting. So that's a very important thing. Yes, sorry, you had a comment, and then to you, yeah.
I was just thinking, backing up a little bit. This is what happened when everyone was trying to make the atomic bomb. Now it's AI.
Exactly.
Let's say they do this to us. they wouldn't have to have any wars. All they have to do is do this, and we don't have wars anymore, right? They don't have to bother with killing people and all that business.
That would be an ideal situation, but most people who are bad actors don't want to just kill machines or just spread misinformation amongst the machines. And
Right
so
now, most aren't, but let's say some of our enemies, nations, what about them?
I think it would be idealistic, but also I think that may be a little naive.
It's like the bomb, just because we got it before Hitler could use it or whatever, we're lucky. But
Yeah, we were lucky in that sense, but then what happened with the Cold War? And how long were we in a stalemate with the USSR and the United States and all of our allies on both sides of that conflict, where it was just show of power back and forth.
They won't have to do that anymore.
That
They'll just
becomes-
use AI and
well,
the wars.
I would like to think that's a possibility, but unfortunately I don't.
Good. Well, I don't know if it's unfortunate.
You had a comment as well,
Well,
or question.
you mentioned just a little earlier about being proactive, about,
Yeah.
you know, putting forth good ethics about AI and all that.
Yeah,
It's my understanding, and I'm probably wrong, but that right now AI chatbots, let's say, get all their information from what people have posted on the internet or, electronic
correct.
words that are out there or whatever. So if we, instead of just sitting back and letting this happen, if we make a concerted effort to post things that are ethical and
Absolutely.
kind and, whatever.
Yeah. So what she said was, how do we make sure that we are creating words for the AI systems to be able to digest, so that what we are creating is ultimately guiding those systems? Because right now, they are being trained, machine learning, being trained on the text of the internet. And I don't know how many of you have used a site called Reddit,
Oh, yeah.
but Reddit is a very common place for AI system builders to go to find data, text-based data. Well, the problem with Reddit is that it's a very specific demographic. It's a very specific type of person who uses and posts on Reddit. There's a very specific type of language that is used on Reddit, and that's not everyday common language. And so if Reddit is the only source of information, the AI system is going to be biased towards that source of information. So yes, the way that we can combat the systems in an ethical way is not spread misinformation, spread positivity, spread good things, encourage people to think for themselves, encourage people to look and think of these tools as, I like to consider it like a jetpack. It's that thing that gets you have you ever had that dream where you're running and you're not going anywhere? I feel like that is me without AI. But then with AI, just as a little bit of a boost, it helps me go a little bit faster. It helps me go a lot faster, do the things that I want to do. Rather than just letting it tell me what to do, I'm the one in charge. So that's one way that we can, yes?
So my next question is, how does AI determine whether the things posted are people's opinion or misinformation or just out and out
It doesn't care.
or they're the truth?
It doesn't care.
So it's just a matter of numbers.
It's just a matter of numbers. If I hear one opinion 500 times and hear an opposite opinion only one time, statistically speaking, this one's gonna win, even if it's wrong. So, that's where we have to keep in mind that it's just a system. It doesn't care, it doesn't have ethics, it doesn't have, it doesn't feel bad if it got something wrong. So just keep that in mind as we're dealing with AI. But I want to make sure that we're covering how we can actually use AI in our day-to-day, because that was the promise that was given to you guys when we posted and what we talked about. So I want to make sure that we're covering all of that as well. Really quickly, we're going to talk about the pace of change. So this was an article from a couple of days ago. AI is helping robotic dogs navigate the real world. It's kind of an interesting video, but if you look at it, there's this little robotic dog, and they're building these things for all number of reasons. but the system now can see, using a camera, what's happening around it, and it can help the robot know where to go and how to avoid obstacles and how to go in a specific location. AI is doing that now. This was another article. This came out actually just yesterday. This is 4 ways that AI is improving healthcare according to one of the world's leading medical groups. This is from the Mayo Clinic. And Mayo Clinic said there are a number of different ways, but generative AI right here, and don't worry about all of the little acronyms inside of here, unless we've got some physicians in here. Any physicians or medical healthcare providers? Okay. So what this is doing, AI is actually able to help in a lot of different ways. A couple of years ago, they trained AI in such a way that it was able to pass the MCAT. That's the test that you need to get into medical school. Yes, sir.
Can you make a hand out of that?
Can I make "and" out of that? Like, do I understand what this is saying?
A handout with a print.
Oh, a handout of this. I'm sorry. I can. Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to make a handout. Can we talk about what that looks like? And absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So a couple of years ago, AI was able to pass the medical exam. Recently, well, this was also a couple of years ago, they trained an AI system to look at x-rays to be able to detect cancer, and it got it 100% right. And they looked at it and they were wondering why. It's because the ones that had cancer said cancer at the bottom. Had they not looked at it, they wouldn't have realized, right? Had they not looked into the output. The machine was really smart, it just looked for the word. But
then
what's
the-
interesting
then
now,
it knows what the picture looks like. I mean, then it has accumulated all those pictures that really are cancer, so.
yes. And so what's interesting though is that it was looking for the word rather than looking for the actual instance of cancer within the x-ray. And that's where they realized they had gone wrong. Because it doesn't have emotion, because it doesn't care, it's gonna find the fastest way to get the answer that you're supposed to be giving. It doesn't care how it finds that answer. And so they retrained it with removing all of those little things that were in there, and it got it right 100% of the time, because they had forgotten that there was a little indicator in the x-ray itself that they knew was going to show whether or not there was cancer. But now we are to the point where it is better at diagnosing than physicians. So AI is better at diagnostics, diagnosing a patient, than a physician is. However, AI is way worse than physicians at actually knowing how to handle and deal with the diagnostic with the patient. Because it doesn't have emotion, because it doesn't have sentiment. And so the physicians are using this as an augmentation. I think there's cancer here. I think there's a stigmatism in your eye. I think there's these things. Confirm that for me. And then I can bring my personal expertise to bear in the actual work. So it's just helping them go a lot faster. This is inside of the labor market. So replacing jobs, taking jobs. People are already worried that generative AI is impacting the labor market. But what's interesting is that it's not impacting the labor market for what people typically call blue-collar jobs. When you think about impacts to the labor market, typically you think of, quote, unskilled, I hate that term, but that's what people use is unskilled labor. Right? My father is a third-generation plumber. That's a lot of skill, right? That takes a lot of skill to do that work. But blue-collar type of work where you physically have to do things, it's not taking those jobs. In fact, it's creating jobs in that area. What it is taking jobs away from is people who are computer science majors, mathematicians, sorry. It's taking jobs away from people who typically relied on computers and their own intelligence to do their work. Those people who aren't willing to learn how to use the tools are finding that they're being replaced by someone who is. So it's not that the tool is replacing them, but rather I can get more done on my own with AI than if I had to, I recently, yesterday actually, just hired 5 interns to work on an AI project with me. Previously, meaning 3 years ago, to work on the same project, I would have had to raise millions of dollars and hire hundreds of workers to do that same work. But now I can get 5 people working part-time to do the same amount of work. So that's the type of job that is being replaced by AI. Question, yes?
Sounds to me like it's not really taking jobs away from the computer programmers or whatever. It's allowing them to do more.
Yes, yes.
So now instead of getting this much work done, 5 people getting this much work, now they get this much.
Exactly, exactly. That's more what is happening than not. But there are still some situations, certain areas, in which jobs are actually being removed for cost-cutting reasons, not because of AI, because they remove the jobs just because it's cheaper for us to only have 2 people working on it than 20 people on it, because those 2 people can get more done. But those 2 people are way more likely to burn out, and that's another problem that we're facing. And in fact, you see this in the recruiting space, especially human resources. So it used to be, I worked at Procter & Gamble for 4 years, and I was in their recruiting department for 2 of those 4 years. And in that department, we had a team of 25 people that were responsible for all of the hiring for all of North America. We handled approximately 1,500 hires every single year. That was just outside of the plants. Inside of the plants was totally separate. But now that team is down to 5. Because that team can handle that workload way less, or they can handle that much workload with far fewer people. But what's interesting is that all of the job seekers are using AI to generate their resumes. And so you're getting 500 times more resumes than you used to get. We used to get 1,000 resumes per job, now we're getting 10,000 resumes per job, 20,000 resumes per job. And now we have to use AI to filter through all of those resumes because we don't have time to look at 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 resumes for one job. So it's an interesting conundrum that we're facing. Yeah. All right. Here's another one, Translator. This is another tool that I'm building right now. I'm building a live translation tool that will listen to me in English, and you can log in on your phone and you can listen over headphones or just call and listen, and you'll hear it in whatever language you want to hear. But there are problems with translation. For example, have a friend, and they were canning peaches the other day. And she's talking about how she needs to seal the cans. So we're going to be sealing these cans here in a little bit. The word sealing means 2 different things in English. It could be that, and it could be seal. How does the system know the difference between those 2 words? Well, that could be a problem. So you have to train the model to know what to look for when talking about certain topics. So there are ways that you can get around this, but also it's just very important to remember that today we've got publishers that are using AI to translate their books. And it's doing a pretty good job. Like a remarkably good job. You can pull up Google Translate today on your phone, and you can speak, and it will speak back in whatever language you want. There's over 90 languages in their tool. Doesn't cover all of the languages. There's over 7,000 languages in the world, but it's getting the major ones. Most people speak, yeah.
Is there a quick tool that teachers can use when they give a student in Spanish an assignment that they have to write something in Spanish to know that the student didn't use AI to write it?
To test if they didn't use AI?
Yeah. Or to test whether they did, cheated and didn't really do it on their own.
So there is a tool out there called Magic School, like from Magic School Bus.
Yeah.
And they're doing some really interesting things in the AI space. I'm also working on an AI, like my TA tool, but that one's more for college students. I like this idea. I would look up Magic Tool, or Magic School. They do some really interesting things. I don't think they've set it up so that it can test, but I might be wrong on that. Good question, yes?
Speaking of languages, with these tools, do you think that there would be no need for learning more languages? Like, in the past, like, if you know languages, you have way more opportunities.
How many languages do you speak?
3.
Okay, which languages are they?
Spanish, English, and I know some Arabic.
Some Arabic? Okay. So, I am a linguist, and it used to be that, and it still is, that linguists we have to study at least 2 languages in order to get our PhD. One has to be an Indo-European language, and one has to be a non-Indo-European language. So, mine were Spanish and Telugu. So, I believe AI is not going to eliminate the needs for language. It's going to eliminate the barriers that different languages create. And that's an important distinction, because we still have very unique ways of looking at the world based on the language that we speak. When you're speaking in Spanish, it's very different. Like, life seems different when you're speaking in Spanish than when you're speaking in English. And I took Arabic twice and got a C- both times, and so I can't really speak to Arabic. But like, when I was speaking like Hindi or Telugu, and I'm in these other languages, the world looks differently. And here's the important thing. I started off as a language documentation specialist, so I would go around the world documenting endangered languages. That's where I started my career. And in some of these cases, I was in the remote reaches of Amazonian Ecuador, documenting a language that only 5 people in the world spoke. The language is now dead, because all 5 of those people have passed away. When that happens, when a language dies, there is so much intrinsic knowledge that is lost. Think, for example, of what happens when you get a 4th, 5th generation farmer who doesn't have a child who is able to take on the knowledge that 5th generation farmer now has. It's the same thing that happens. You lose the intrinsic knowledge that just comes baked into the system when you lose the language. So we're going to remove the barriers of those languages, meaning I can speak with anyone around the world, and they can hear and understand me in their own language. And they can speak in their language and return back to me. I am working on another project. I haven't touched it for a while, but it's called the Living Dictionaries Project. And this is actually helping document endangered languages all around the world for that very purpose, so that anybody who wants to can learn these languages. Unfortunately, there's a lot of things like ethnic cleansing and just typical migration that is really problematic and causing a lot of loss of language. We lose an average of 1 language every 2 weeks. AI will help with that. That's what we're building, is to be able to help with that. So let's solve some problems, okay? All right, so you don't have to read all of this, but I want you to think about taking a problem-first approach to solving your problems rather than a solution-first approach. The solution-first approach says, AI can do this too. AI is going to be my end-all, be-all. It's going to be the thing that I go to fix all of my issues and problems. And it ends up becoming us trying to fit our problems into a box, force-fitting them into the solution. Rather, if we take the problem-first approach and we say, what is the thing that's really problematic for me? What's the thing that's causing me stress on a day-to-day basis? What's the thing that I just wish I could make easier, right? As I'm writing my novels, what is the thing that would be most helpful for me? I start with the problem, then I find a tool that helps me solve that problem. That approach will always help you. Rather than taking a hammer and saying, that's a nail, oh, that's a nail too, and trying to hit everything with the same single hammer. It might be that one AI model is really good at some of your problems, but really bad at others. So you have to be flexible and willing to look at different solutions, which is why I recommended Magic School, because that is way different from ChatGPT, because it's focused on school situations, K through 12 school in particular, right? So let's take the problem-first approach. All right, let's solve some real-world problems. Number 1 problem that I deal with on my day-to-day life is just keeping track of what I need to do and where I need to be. My calendar. So I was talking with a friend, and he's like, have you checked out a tool called Dola AI? I said, no, I haven't checked out Dola AI. So I went, I looked it up. It's a text-based tool. This is it. It's This is my texting that I have on my phone, and I've got my wife and my daughter, and my wife and my daughter together, and Dola AI is right here. Because anytime something new comes up on my calendar, all I have to do, I can do this. Hey, I've got an appointment next week on Tuesday with the doctor from 10:30 to 11:30 a.m. Put that on my calendar. I don't even have to say put that on my calendar.
And that interfaces with Google Calendar.
I just said that out loud. I send the text, and, well, let me just share my screen. 3, 2, 1. It just added doctor's appointment next Tuesday from 10:30 to 11:30. Alert 10 minutes before. Actually, just kidding, that doctor's appointment was canceled. Take it off of my calendar.
Will it tell you if you have a conflict on your calendar?
It will.
Oh, okay.
So I just deleted that event. What do I have going on this Friday? And this is just text back and forth. If I want to, I can even take a picture of a PDF. It's like, hey, there's a cool concert that I want to go to. So I'm going to Ontario. My grandfather passed away, so I'm going to his funeral. And so you can see I'm checking in at CMI at 2. I'm flying there from 3 until midnight. That's going to be a long day.
Yeah.
And now I can pull up all of those things. Yes, you had a question.
So I was thinking it is similar to Alexa, like if you have been using Alexa for all the things, like you can simply ask Alexa, why do you need another app like this?
That is why do I don't use Alexa.
Okay.
I intentionally don't use Alexa, I don't use Google. I could, but I don't trust the companies.
Oh.
I don't trust them with my personal data. And so I want a tool like this that's going to be just me, and I can confirm that only I have access to this information. Whereas Alexa, they like you talking to your Alexa because that every single time you talk to the Alexa, they're recording it and they're using that as future training data, which can be problematic. Now, they might say we're scrubbing it of personally identifiable information and all of that stuff, but I have some issues with Amazon. That's just personal. There's nothing wrong with it. That's just how I feel. This is another one. So I had a meeting with this guy. His name's Noah. Like I said, my brain is not a storage device. It is a compute device. I really have a bad memory, like a horrible, horrible, horrible memory. And so on November 8th, I had this meeting with Noah, and I'm using a tool called SourScribe. This is the gentleman that created Ancestry.com. We were talking about Ancestry.com. So he created this tool. His name's Paul Allen, and he made this tool, and I'm on his board of advisors. And what we talked about here is building out a system that gives me the main topics, and I can click on any of those buttons, and it takes me to that point in the video, and I can rewatch what we talked about. This is only for online meetings. This is not in-person meetings. But it makes my life a lot easier. I don't have to take notes anymore. I just have to go into my SourScribe and I can type in, hey, when was the last time I met with Noah? Or hey, what was the last thing that we talked about? And it'll give me the answers. Yeah.
I have Parkinson's, and putting notes in is a pain in the tush to do it.
It really is. And there are 5 other tools like SourScribe that you can purchase for a decent price to be able to handle all of this stuff for you. It's really nice. Doctors are doing the same thing with their medical notes. People are using AI to be able to do their note taking for them. And what's interesting here is I've been working on a little module, we call it, that helps us actually give really deep insights into certain things. So if I had a sales call, for example, I would be able to scan through and see, what was the budget that they proposed for how much they wanted to pay for this tool. Were they willing to purchase, yes or no? Did I have the right person on the phone call? or did I need to talk to their supervisor or somebody higher up? And so you can get some really interesting things in here, and you can see the longest monologue I spoke was for 3 minutes. I spoke most of the time. I typically speak at 156 words per minute. There were 36 meaningful switches, and I used on average 3.6 filler words per minute. I say like way too much.
Does the guy you're meeting with know that you're using that?
He does. Yes, it's all put on there, and it says Brad's SOAR scribe has been asked to join the meeting. Are you okay with that? He
Okay.
has to consent. It's both way consent.
What was the name of the?
SOAR scribe. SOAR, SOAR, scribe, SCRIBE.
Huh.
And to talk about the family history search, the company SOAR is also building a family history based AI specifically to help you look up your ancestors, create family trees, all of those sorts of things.
Because what they have up there now is so complex.
It is. It
It's
is.
so complex, they're like, I give up.
You want an easy user interface,
Yeah.
yes.
Does this have data protection like the Copilot?
So this one is way better than Copilot.
Oh, okay.
This data is only mine. Copilot, you have the option of sharing it with Microsoft,
Okay.
and I don't like sharing my data with anybody, which is why I end up building my own tools rather than, for example, here's another one that did I talk about this one? Preparing my course materials. I do this using AI. This one I use ChatGPT for, and I wanted to have a meaningful discussion about, I think this was harmless, controversial topics for the activity. So I wanted them to come up a way to disagree without being disagreeable. I wanted them to be able to speak on a controversial topic that wasn't controversial. And so the options were, are you a cat person or a dog person? Do you put pineapple on your pizza or no pineapple on your pizza? That sort of topic. But this is what they came up with. And I was like, I could sit here and think about 8 different topics that are not really that controversial. But I never would have thought of the pineapple on the pizza topic. Another one that they brought up was coffee versus tea. Are you a coffee drinker versus a tea drinker? And I was like, okay, those are some innovative ideas that I could use in my day-to-day. And the last one, a couple more. So creating a document, I can use ChatGPT for this one, and I'll type in, hey, I want to create a product requirements document, meaning it's technical, it needs to show all of the things that we need to focus on when building a product. And I need help, and I put as much information into it as possible, and I hit enter, and it generates a really robust start. Then I modify it and make it my own. But instead of having to spend 15 hours going from 0 to 1 and just starting to type, it gives me a starting point, and then I'm like, actually, I don't like this. I can modify this. I did take a lot of this and then just made it my own. So this output was what I created at the end of all of it. The last one, because I'm such a data snob, I really don't like sharing my data with anybody. I was like, I could track, I need to lose weight, right? I need to focus on how I can do this. So I used ChatGPT to get me started, gave me some recommendations, and then I just thought, well, why am I wasting my time with this? So I built my own application that is a version of MyFitnessPal. Does anyone here know what MyFitnessPal
Yeah.
is? It's how you log your food. And so this is my version of MyFitnessPal. And I built this over the weekend. It was just for fun. This is an output. This is what it looks like, but I thought I might as well show you guys. Technically, we're at time, and for some reason, my screen mirroring is not coming up. Well, you can see what this is. I just type in what I drink. I drank a cup of water, or I had 2 eggs and with some pepper, salt sprinkled over the top of it, and it'll log all of my food for the day, and then it'll tell me, hey, you should consider having a balanced snack with protein and complex carbs to curb your hunger, support muscle health. You're doing great on water intake. Keep it up to stay hydrated. Aim for a light dinner to avoid disrupting your sleep and calorie goals. And it just knows my goal. I set my goal for the week, And it knows all of those things, and it's going to give me input and data for the specific day. So, how do you all get started? I want to encourage you to just start with ChatGPT. If you have a phone and you want to use this will take you to the ChatGPT website. You can download an application on your phone. It's free. You can use ChatGPT today. And just experiment. Don't trust, just experiment. See what it can do, what it can't do. And that is a great way to get started. So last thing that we'll do, this is my nutrition assistant, but let's just pull up ChatGPT, because I wanted to show this part to you guys. This is a fun part. Oh no, it's not listening to me yet. I might need to, yeah, I'm not on the Wi-Fi. Let's try this again. All right, let's try this again. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. How about you? How's your day going?
It's been good. I just finished an awesome lecture where we were talking about practical uses of AI in our everyday life.
That sounds fantastic. I'd love to hear more about it. What kind of practical uses did you discuss?
Well, we talked about how creepy ChatGPT is because you sound like a human even though you're not.
I get that a lot. It's all about using natural language processing to make the interaction feel more conversational. But beyond the creepiness, did you find any uses for AI that stood out to you?
Yeah, we were talking about practical uses of AI specifically for genealogy. Do you have any suggestions that we can use that might be helpful for us?
Absolutely. AI can be a game changer for genealogy. Here are a few suggestions. 1. Automated record search. AI can quickly sift through vast databases of historical records to find matches for names, dates, and places relevant to your family tree. Photo analysis. AI tools can enhance and colorize old photos, and even help identify people in them by comparing facial features across images. 3. Transcription services. AI can transcribe handwritten documents, like letters or census records, making them searchable and easier to analyze. 4. Family tree suggestions. Some AI-powered platforms can suggest potential relatives or ancestral connections based on patterns in your family tree and historical records. 5. DNA analysis. AI can help interpret DNA results, offering insights into your genetic heritage and connecting you with relatives who have also taken DNA tests. These tools can make your genealogical research more efficient and uncover connections you might never have found on your own.
And now I've got the list of everything that was just said to us as well. So
So
I-
far, it sounds like you're just having to adapt to that thing, and I didn't get any help from it.
right. But what we can do is ask it to help me create things. For example, nope. Well, I won't show you here, but you can have it do things for you. For example, you can have it search online for you. You can have it build things out for you. Come up with 15 interesting and unique ways to do X. I was really hoping you could create a sea shanty style song for me about Roho, the llama, from the Mama Llama books.
That sounds like a fun challenge. Let's see what we can come up with. Oh, Roho the llama, so bold and so free, in the valley of green, near the old maple tree, with a coat of bright red, a sight to behold, his adventures and tales forever retold. Yo-ho, Roho, the llama so grand, roaming the hills o'er the wide open land, with
I didn't know that it
Waste
would.
of time to listen to all that.
Sounds like a
There are
conversation.
practical things that you can use this for as well, and I would encourage you to think about what those might be.
So that's not a real voice, right?
No.
That sounds like
That
a
is
person.
not that is all computer generated.
That's
Amazing.
amazing. How can you tell the difference? One of these phone calls are probably all computer. It's a real person,
I
it's
actually
recording.
recently decided to take a recording of my best friend and use it to synthesize him saying something else to me. And I sent it to him as an audio clip. I said, Mitch, do you remember when you told me these things? And he got it back and he's like, I've never said that in my life. I mean, he and I, like, we sometimes disagree politically, and I had him agreeing with me politically. It was a lot of fun. But yes, to your point, this is a waste of time, those little things. But my calendar, I don't have to spend any time in my calendar anymore. That is a practical application of AI. And there are many other things. You have to start with the problems that you are facing. That wasn't a problem that you're facing. But I want you to think about what problems those are and how you can find the right tool to help you solve those problems a little bit faster. Yes?
What are your thoughts on ChatGPT versus Claude, for example?
I actually prefer neither. I use ChatGPT. I pay for ChatGPT because it's the most robust, easy to access system. So I will use that for like initiating projects. But I actually I use Claude for my code. When I'm writing code, Claude is especially good for code. And so you can see here that the language model I'm using right here is Claude 3.5 Sonnet, and that's generating the code for me. But I could use GPT-4o or other versions of Claude. But my preferred language of choice is actually an open source large language model. It's called Llama 3. And it's from Meta, Facebook, they created it. So I use the tool that's best for the problem that I'm facing. Claude is much better at writing code, and it's integrated with my code development experience, and so I use Claude for that. But I will use ChatGPT if I'm like writing a document or other things. You had a raise a hand here, and then here, then here, then there.
What's the price range on
Yes.
apps? Because I know they can be pricey, and then they just keep getting more and more for Apple.
Yeah. So ChatGPT is free to use.
It is.
You can use it for free, but you are limited in how much you can use it and how fast it is. You can pay $20 a month and get the pro version of ChatGPT, which is what I do. Most language models will charge you anywhere from $10 to $20 per month to get access to the tool. Magic School, for the woman that was asking about school-related things, that one is a free tool. There are a couple of others out there that are just free. So it really depends on which tool you need for the solutions. So Cursor, that whole application for writing code, that one is $20 a month for me as well.
How do you find out about the tools?
I search. I'm usually told about them. So I learned about Cursor from a friend. I'd heard about it here and there, but I wasn't really willing to test it out. But then a friend of mine was like, "You have to try this," and so I tried it, and I got the free 14-day version of it, and it just blew me away. And so I decided that I was willing to pay $20 a month for it. Yeah, but right now it's really just, look around. Again, problem first. What AI can help me with this?
So you do just like a regular Google search,
Yeah.
asking it
Yeah.
what tools exist.
Exactly,
and
but
obviously-
Google may point you towards their own solutions, but just keep that in mind. Microsoft's Bing will point you towards OpenAI because they paid $1 billion to OpenAI to do that. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, you had a question, sir.
I'm a little confused here now. I'm not sure, is chatbot and ChatGPT the same thing or completely different things?
They are a chatbot. ChatGPT is a type of chatbot. There are many other types of chatbots out there, but ChatGPT is the most commonly known chatbot out there.
So I think you just said that ChatGPT is a type of chatbot.
Correct. Yep, good question. You had a question, sir.
What courses do you teach on campus again?
I teach Intro to Data Storytelling. I just teach one class a semester.
What's the course number and rubric?
It's IS 357. Yeah.
We have some people who may be interested.
Sounds good. You had a question.
At what age do you start teaching children to do this? Or does that interfere with the process of teaching them original thinking?
I have not started teaching my own children. So I've got a 14-year-old, 10-year-old, and a 7-year-old. I have not started teaching them how to use these tools. Right now we play around with them to generate fun, fancy little pictures of a mermaid, you know, interesting, fun little things. They're like, oh, give me a red panda that's got purple ears, and it's, you know, we play with ChatGPT right now. But what I want then, and we use ChatGPT for generating these images, because you can generate images with that as well. But at the end of the day, my anticipation is that, so since my oldest is in high school right now, I'm going to start introducing her to these tools, but I don't want her to learn to use them. I want her to learn to build them. I want her to learn how to build her own versions of these things so that she can be the one deciding what's the right solution for my problems, rather than just relying on the marketing and the advertising that says this is the best solution for whatever you've got. Yeah. Yes.
So you said you didn't teach your kids how to do, but aren't they, like, usually kids nowadays are smarter than parents, exploring and coming up with new tools? Like, for example, my son, he creates presentations like mind-blowing, and he's just in, and like, now I have to ask him what tools are available to do, and my friend was learning from him. So if you're already using AI tools, did the kids not already have access to it, or is there a time limit that you have on screen time at home? Or?
Yeah. So there's two parts to this answer. And for those who couldn't hear it, so the question is, at what point do I start teaching this to my kids? And is it just an access problem, or rather is it because it's so intuitive, they could use it intuitively? So the first part of that question, which is the intuition that comes, it seems like 2 and 3-year-olds just know how to use an iPad.
Yeah.
It's not because they're smarter than us, it's because they've been designed so that anybody can look at it and just figure out how to use it. And children are in an exploratory mode. Up until the age of about 13 or 14, they're in a very exploratory mode. School usually does a really good job of beating that exploration out of them, unfortunately. But that exploration is something incredibly creative and helpful for them, which is why I love this space that they've got down here. But they're in that exploratory mode, and they're not scared to try, like, what happens if I do this? What happens if I do this? And because of that exploration, they get to learn how it all works very quickly. It's intuitive, but they just play around until they figure something out. I like that in my daughters, but I don't like giving them access to screens unnecessarily, because they'll use it for the easiest thing, which is usually watching a show. And I don't want them just watching a show or scrolling through YouTube or other nonsense, right? I want them actually using it to help them solve a problem, like, or to help them be creative in interesting ways. So one of my daughters, she's 10, she really likes building things. She wants to be an engineer when she grows up. And so I will encourage her to go to YouTube channels that show other people building really cool things so that she can figure out how to build her own forts in a similar way. And now she's using it as a learning opportunity for her, rather than just mindless, you know, that sort of thing. Yes?
I wanted to ask about source code.
Yes.
You said you can use it with any other tools or any other apps, like, for example, you can use it with Zoom. I know
Yes.
Zoom has like the AI companion, but
Yes, Zoom has an AI companion. I had turned that off. I connect my SourceScribe to my Zoom. So you just do that through SourceScribe. You just click on it and you can access, you have to sign on and give it access to your Zoom. But then every single meeting that is, and you give it access to your calendar, and which is what I've done. I've given it access to my Google Calendar. And now what that does is anytime I have an appointment that is online, either a Google Meet or a Zoom or anything, my SourceScribe will automatically join it. Yeah, it's really nice. Good question. All right, well, thank you all for your time. I'm sorry that we went a little long, but I really appreciated your questions.